My daughter said her husband was abusing her, and I destroyed him. But when the truth came out, I couldn't believe the monster I had created. My name is Diana, and I spent almost everything I had saved to buy my daughter a house. I thought I was saving her from an abusive marriage. Turns out I was helping the abuser escape with her victims. For 2 years, I believed every lie she told me about her husband. Every single one. It started small, like these things always do. She'd call me crying, saying her husband controlled all the money, that he screamed at her over nothing, that she was walking on eggshells in her own home. What kind of mother doesn't believe her daughter? Right? What kind of mother hears those things and doesn't immediately jump into action? So I believed her. God help me. I believed every tearful phone call, every hushed conversation when she'd visit alone, every time she'd flinch when her phone rang. She told me he pushed her once, then twice. Then it became a regular thing, she said, always careful not to leave marks where people could see. I watched her husband at family dinners, looking for signs of the monster she described. He seemed normal, almost boring. But isn't that how abusers work? They're charming in public, terrifying in private. For 2 years, I watched my daughter suffer. Or so I thought. I made plans. I researched domestic violence resources. I talked to lawyers quietly, trying to figure out how to help her leave safely. She had 2 kids, my grandkids, and she said she stayed because she was terrified he'd take them from her. Every time I suggested she leave, she'd say she was scared. That she needed time. That she needed a plan. So I made a plan for her. I'm not wealthy, but I've saved money my whole life. I used almost everything I had and bought a house. A real house not far from mine, with a yard and 3 bedrooms. One for her, one for each kid. A fresh start, a safe place. I could see them growing up there, finally away from the nightmare she'd been living. When I sent her the message about the house, she called me crying. Happy tears this time, she said. She kept saying thank you, over and over, saying I'd saved their lives. We made plans for the move. She'd take the kids and leave while he was at work. Clean break. New life. It all seemed perfect. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was late, maybe 11 at night, 3 days before the planned move. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. It was my son-in-law, her husband, the man I'd been silently hating for 2 years. And his first words were something I never expected to hear. He said, and I quote, "Please, before you help her destroy my life completely, just give me one chance to show you the truth." I should have hung up. Everything I'd learned about domestic violence said this was a manipulation tactic, the abuser trying to turn the family against the victim. But something in his voice stopped me. He didn't sound angry. He sounded broken, desperate. And he said something that made my blood run cold. He said, "I have cameras, I have proof, and I'm begging you to look at it before you do this." That's when I realized I might not know the full story at all. I agreed to meet him. I know. But here's the thing, I had to know. If he was lying, I'd see through it. If there was even a chance my daughter had been telling the truth, the videos would prove it. Either way, I needed to see for myself before we went through with moving her and the kids. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral territory. He looked terrible. I mean, genuinely awful, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking as he opened his laptop. Part of me still thought this was an act. Abusers are good actors, right? He started talking before showing me anything. Said he'd installed security cameras in the house 8 months ago because things were getting dangerous. That he needed proof for when he finally left with the kids. I wanted to interrupt, to tell him my daughter had said the exact same thing about needing proof, but I kept quiet. Then he showed me the first video, and my entire world tilted sideways. The footage was from their living room, dated 4 months prior. Crystal clear image, sound, and everything. My daughter walked into frame holding a glass. Her husband was sitting on the couch with their son, helping him with homework. Something completely normal. Then she just threw the glass at his head. No warning, no argument I could hear, just threw it. He ducked. The glass shattered against the wall, and their son started screaming. I watched my son-in-law pull the boy close, shielding him with his body, while my daughter screamed obscenities. She called him pathetic, worthless, said he was a terrible father. The little boy was crying, begging her to stop. My son-in-law never raised his voice. He just kept saying, "Please, not in front of him. Please, stop." There were more videos. So many more. Her shoving him into walls, slapping him across the face while he held their baby daughter, throwing his phone and breaking it, destroying his laptop. In every single video. He never fought back. He'd try to protect the kids, try to leave the room, try to calm her down. And she'd follow him, screaming, hitting, throwing things. One video showed her punching him repeatedly while he had their daughter in his arms. The baby couldn't have been more than 18 months old. He turned his back to shield the baby, and my daughter punched his spine, his shoulders, the back of his head. The baby was wailing, and my son-in-law just took it, whispering to the baby that everything was okay. "Daddy's got you. It's okay." I felt sick. Actually physically sick. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom where I threw up everything I'd eaten that day. When I came back, he was crying silently, staring at the paused video on his screen. "I never touched her," he said. "Not once. I swear to you. Not once." I believed him. How could I not? The evidence was right there, dozens of videos spanning months. My daughter was the abuser. My daughter was the monster. And I'd been helping her plan to take his kids away from him and isolate them with her, the one person who'd been protecting them. I asked him why he never called the police. He said he tried once. She told the responding officers that he was the aggressor, that she was defending herself. They looked at him, bigger and stronger, and they looked at her, small and crying, and they didn't believe him. He said that's when he started installing cameras. Evidence. Irrefutable proof. He asked me what I was going to do. Honestly, I had no idea. This was my daughter, my baby, and she'd been lying to me for 2 years, manipulating me, using me to help her abuse her husband. But those were my grandkids in those videos, traumatized and crying. For the first time in my life, I didn't know which side I was supposed to be on. The videos were bad enough. But then my son-in-law told me about the affairs, and I realized the situation was even worse than I'd thought. He pulled up screenshots of messages, dozens of them. Different men, different conversations, all explicit, all recent. My daughter had been telling me she was trapped in an abusive marriage while actively sleeping with multiple men on the side. I'm not going to repeat what those messages said, but they left no room for doubt. One man in particular stood out. From the messages, it was clear he thought he was some kind of hero. My daughter had told him she was basically a single mother, that her dangerous ex-husband kept harassing her, that she feared for her safety. This guy was eating it up, offering to protect her, calling himself her knight in shining armor. It was nauseating. He was picking my grandkids up from school, taking them to the park, playing pretend daddy while their actual father worked to support them. And he had no idea he was being played too. I did something I'm not proud of. I tracked this man down. Found his social media, his workplace, everything. Then I called him and asked to meet. He was confused, but agreed. Probably thought I was going to thank him for helping my daughter. We met at a park. He looked exactly like I'd expected. Mid-30s, thinks he's God's gift. That swagger that comes from believing your own lies. He started telling me about how he was there for her during this difficult time, and how he'd help her through the divorce. I asked him what divorce. He blinked, confused. I asked him if he knew she was still married, still living with her husband, still sharing a bed with him for all I knew. The color drained from his face. Then I showed him the photos my son-in-law had given me. Recent family photos, date stamped. My daughter, her husband, the kids, all together. I told him about the house I'd bought, about the move we'd planned, about how she'd been lying to everyone, including him. He looked like I'd punched him in the stomach. Started stammering about how she told him the husband was violent, that she was scared. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the videos. Just one, but it was enough. My daughter hitting her husband while he protected the kids. This guy sat down hard on the park bench, put his head in his hands, started talking about how he'd been picking up the kids from school because she said the father was stalking them, how he'd installed a security system at her request because she claimed the ex broke in, how he'd loaned her money because she said her husband controlled all the finances. We talked for over an hour. By the end, we'd formed an unlikely alliance. Both of us had been manipulated. Both of us had believed her lies. And both of us were furious. He asked what I was planning to do. I told him about the house, about the upcoming move. Then I told him I had a better idea. What if, instead of helping her escape, we used that house to make her face the truth? What if we confronted her together? Him, me, and my son-in-law. All three of us in the same room with her, comparing notes, showing proof, forcing her to answer for what she'd done. No more running, no more lies, just cold, hard truth. He was in. My son-in-law was hesitant when I called him later, worried about the kids seeing another confrontation. But I promised we'd do it when the kids were at school. Just the adults. Just the truth. We set it up for 3 days later. The day she thought she was moving into her new house. The day she thought she was escaping. Instead, it was going to be the day her carefully constructed web of lies came crashing down around her. I just had to figure out how to reconcile the fact that I was about to destroy my own daughter's life, and that she absolutely deserved it. The morning of the confrontation, I woke up at 5 and couldn't fall back asleep. I kept running through scenarios in my head. Would she deny everything? Break down? Get violent? I'd seen the videos. I knew what she was capable of. Part of me wondered if I should have just walked away, let her husband handle it through the courts. But no, I was involved now. I'd been funding her lies for 2 years. I needed to face this. I got to the house early to set up. It felt surreal, walking through the rooms I'd imagined my grandkids growing up in, knowing that was never going to happen. My son-in-law arrived next, looking nervous but determined. The affair partner showed up last, and the two men shook hands awkwardly. Weird moment, honestly. The husband and the affair partner united against the woman who'd lied to them both. We had everything ready. The laptop with the videos, printed screenshots of the messages, the real property deed, which I'd put in my son-in-law's name, not my daughter's. She didn't know that yet. She thought the house was going to be hers. Another lie. But this one was mine. She knocked at exactly 10 in the morning. I opened the door, and she threw her arms around me, practically vibrating with excitement. She had 2 suitcases with her. Started talking about how the kids were so excited, how this was going to be a fresh start, how grateful she was. I felt sick letting her go on like that, but I needed her inside first. She walked into the living room still chattering away, then stopped dead when she saw both men sitting there. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, fear, and then this calculated blankness that was almost scarier than anything else. What is this? She looked at me. Mom, what's going on? I sat down, told her to sit too. She refused, started edging toward the door. The affair partner stood up and blocked it. Not aggressively, just standing there. She looked genuinely panicked then. My son-in-law spoke first. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands shaking. He told her we all knew. About the abuse, about the affairs, about the lies, about everything. She started to protest. Started to cry. That same performance I'd seen dozens of times. But then he opened the laptop and turned it toward her. Watch, he said. Watch yourself. She watched about 10 seconds of the first video before she tried to grab the laptop. The affair partner caught her wrist. Not hard, just stopped her. She spun on him then. Started screaming about how he was supposed to be on her side. How dare he betray her? Didn't he love her? He looked at her with pure disgust. Told her he'd believed he was protecting a victim. Told her he'd been picking up her kids, installing security for her, supporting her emotionally and financially. And she'd been using him the entire time. She tried to touch his face. Some manipulation tactic. But he stepped back like she was poisonous. Then she turned to me. Started pleading. Mom, you don't understand. They're ganging up on me. They're lying. You believe me, right? You've always believed me. And I'll admit, for just a second, I wavered. She's my daughter. I've known her for 33 years. But then I thought about those videos. About my grandkids crying while she hit their father. I told her I'd seen the proof. All of it. I told her the house wasn't hers. I told her I knew about everything. And I watched my daughter transform into someone I didn't recognize. The tears stopped instantly. Her face went cold. She stood up straight and looked at all 3 of us with pure hatred. You're all going to regret this, she said, voice flat and scary. Every single one of you. Then she walked into the kitchen and came back with a knife from the block on the counter. That's when everything got really bad, really fast. I've never been truly afraid of my own daughter before that moment. But standing there watching her hold that knife, seeing her face completely devoid of emotion, I understood why my son-in-law had installed all those cameras. This wasn't anger. This was something colder. She pointed the knife at her husband first, started saying things I won't repeat about what she was going to do to him, how he'd ruined her life, how he'd turned everyone against her. The affair partner tried to talk her down, hands up, telling her to put it down. She swung toward him instead, calling him every name you can imagine. My son-in-law had his phone out, already calling the police. She saw it and lunged at him. I'm not exaggerating. She actually lunged with the knife. The affair partner tackled her from the side. They went down hard, crashing into the coffee table. The knife skittered across the floor and I grabbed it, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. She was screaming like an animal, trying to claw at his face, kicking, thrashing. He managed to flip her onto her stomach and pin her arms behind her back. She kept screaming about how we were all betraying her, how we'd all pay, how she'd make sure her husband never saw his kids again. It was disturbing how she could switch between threats and playing victim in the same breath. The police arrived in maybe 6 minutes, but it felt like hours. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. My daughter immediately started crying the second she saw them. Her whole demeanor changed. She went limp, started sobbing, saying we'd attacked her, that her abusive husband had set this up, that we were trying to take her children. I watched it happen in real time. The female officer's expression softened. She was buying it. My son-in-law saw it too. He held up his phone. I have videos, months of videos. Please just look at them before you decide anything. The male officer seemed skeptical of everyone, which honestly was fair. The affair partner explained who he was and why he was there. That probably didn't help our case, honestly. The whole situation looked insane. The female officer was already moving toward my daughter, asking if she needed medical attention. Then my son-in-law played one of the videos. Just pulled it up on his phone and played it, sound on, right there in the living room. The one where she punched him while he was holding the baby. The officers watched. Their expressions changed. The female officer stepped back from my daughter. How many videos? The male officer asked. 47, my son-in-law said, spanning 8 months, all clearly dated and time-stamped. I have them backed up in multiple locations. I can send them all to you right now. My daughter started screaming again, saying the videos were fake, doctored, that we were all conspiring against her. But the officers weren't listening anymore. They were watching video after video on my son-in-law's phone, her hitting him, throwing things, destroying property, terrorizing the kids. The male officer asked if there were any injuries that needed documenting. My son-in-law pulled up his shirt, bruises, old and new, in various stages of healing, down his back, across his ribs. The affair partner looked like he might be sick. They arrested her, read her rights while she sobbed and screamed. She looked at me as they put the handcuffs on. "Mom," she said, voice breaking. "Mom, please. You're my mother. Please don't let them do this." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Just watched as they led my daughter out to the police car. The female officer stayed behind to take our statements. Asked why we hadn't reported this sooner. My son-in-law explained he'd tried once and wasn't believed. Explained he'd been gathering evidence to ensure custody of his children. The officer nodded, understanding. She said the videos were some of the clearest evidence of domestic violence she'd ever seen, that he'd done the right thing documenting everything. She took copies of the files, took photos of his injuries, wrote down everything. After they left, the 3 of us just sat there in silence. The affair partner left first, said he needed to process everything. My son-in-law and I stayed. He started crying, just broke down completely. I held him while he sobbed. This man I'd hated for 2 years, this man I'd believed was abusing my daughter, crying in my arms because he'd finally proven the truth. "The kids," he said eventually. "I need to figure out how to tell the kids." That's when it really hit me. My grandkids were about to learn their mother had been arrested, and it was partially because of me. My son-in-law picked the kids up from school that day like nothing had happened. Didn't want to scare them. Brought them back to his house, which I'd never actually been inside before. It was modest but clean. Clearly a home where someone was trying their best. Kids' artwork on the fridge, toys organized in bins, family photos on the walls. In half of them, my daughter looked normal. smiling. It was jarring. He asked if I'd stay while he talked to them. I said yes, even though I wasn't sure I should be there. These were my grandkids, but I barely knew them. My daughter had always controlled the visits, always been present, always managed what we talked about. I realized I'd never had a real conversation with either of them. The boy's name is Marcus. He's 7. The girl is Lily. She's 4. My son-in-law sat them down on the couch and explained as gently as possible that Mommy had made some mistakes and was going to be gone for a while. That she'd hurt Daddy and needed help to learn not to do that anymore. Marcus didn't look surprised. That killed me. This 7-year-old child just nodded like he'd been expecting this. Lily asked if Mommy was coming back tonight. When her dad said no, she asked if that meant no more yelling. The casual way she said it, like she was asking if it would rain tomorrow. That's when I understood how normalized the violence had become for them. My son-in-law suggested the kids show me their rooms, give him a minute to collect himself. Marcus led me upstairs silently. His room was full of building toys and books. Lily's room was princess-themed, exactly what you'd expect for a 4-year-old. But both rooms had something in common. No photos of their mother anywhere. I asked Marcus about school, trying to make normal conversation. He answered in short sentences, watching me carefully. Then he asked, "Are you going to hurt my dad?" I swear my heart stopped. I asked him why he would think that. He said Grandma had told him that men were bad and that Daddy was the worst. That I hated Daddy and wanted him to go away. My daughter had been poisoning these kids against their own father for years. I knelt down to his level and told him the truth. That I'd made a mistake. That I'd believed things that weren't true about his dad. That his dad loved him very much and would never, ever hurt him. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, then asked if I loved Daddy too now. I told him I respected his dad and wanted to help their family. That seemed to satisfy him. Then Lily tugged my sleeve and asked if the yelling was really over. I promised her we'd all try our hardest to make sure it was. Over the next few hours, pieces of the story came out through casual conversation. How Mommy would scream at Daddy after they went to bed, but they could hear everything. How sometimes Daddy would sleep in the car because Mommy threw things. How they weren't allowed to tell anyone about the fighting or Mommy would be very upset. A neighbor came by later. A kind woman in her 60s. She brought casserole and stayed to chat. After the kids were distracted with a movie, she told me she'd called the police twice after seeing my daughter hit my son-in-law through the window. Both times, my daughter had convinced the responding officers that she was the victim. The neighbor had felt helpless watching it happen. She said other neighbors had witnessed things too. That everyone on the street knew what was happening, but no one could get anyone to listen. She seemed relieved that someone finally had, that the kids might finally be safe. That night, my son-in-law asked if I wanted to stay for dinner. I did. We ordered food and ate together, the 4 of us. It was strange but not uncomfortable. The kids relaxed more as the evening went on. Marcus actually smiled at something his dad said. Lily crawled into my lap during the movie and fell asleep there. As I was leaving, Marcus hugged me goodbye. First real hug from my grandson in years. He whispered, "Thanks for not hurting my dad, Grandma." I cried the whole drive home. My phone was full of messages from my ex-husband, my daughter's father, demanding to know what happened, insisting I bail her out, saying I was betraying family. I turned my phone off and tried to sleep. Tried not to think about my daughter in a cell, or my grandson thanking me for not hurting his father, or any of it. But mostly I thought about how I'd almost helped her take those kids away from the one person who'd been protecting them all along. The emergency custody hearing happened faster than I expected. My son-in-law's lawyer filed within 48 hours of my daughter's arrest, citing immediate danger to the children. I was subpoenaed to testify. Me, testifying against my own daughter in court. The night before, I barely slept. Kept rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd explain that I'd believed her lies for 2 years. How I'd almost helped her continue the abuse. I felt like the worst mother in the world. What kind of mother stands against her own child in court? The courtroom was smaller than I expected. My daughter was there in an orange jumpsuit, looking exhausted and somehow smaller. When she saw me walk in to sit on her husband's side of the room, her face crumpled. She started crying silently. I had to look away. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was the real victim, that her husband had manipulated the evidence somehow, that the videos were taken out of context, that she'd been acting in self-defense. It might have worked if there had only been 1 or 2 videos. But 47 videos spanning 8 months, all showing the same pattern? There was no spinning that. My son-in-law's lawyer was methodical, played video after video. The judge's expression grew more disturbed with each one. When they played the video of her hitting her husband while he held the baby, I heard someone in the gallery gasp. Might have been me. Then it was my turn to testify. I swore to tell the truth and sat down. The lawyer asked me to explain my relationship with my daughter. I did. Then she asked me to explain what my daughter had told me about her marriage. I laid it all out. 2 years of phone calls, of tears, of stories about abuse that never happened. The judge took notes. The lawyer asked if I'd paid for anything during this time. I admitted I'd bought the house, explained my plan to help her escape with the kids. The judge looked up sharply at that, asked me to repeat myself. I did. Said I'd spent nearly everything I had saved to help her leave her husband, believing she was in danger. And when did you learn the truth? The judge asked directly. I told her about the phone call, about seeing the videos, about realizing everything my daughter had told me was a lie. My voice broke when I said it out loud. The judge's expression softened slightly, but she remained professional. My daughter's lawyer tried to discredit me on cross-examination, suggested I was biased now because I'd wasted money on the house, suggested my son-in-law had manipulated me too. I looked directly at my daughter and said, I saw the videos. I saw what you did to him. I saw what you did in front of your children. That's not manipulation. That's truth. My daughter stood up suddenly, started yelling, called me a traitor, screamed that I'd chosen a stranger over my own blood. The judge ordered her to sit down or be removed. Her lawyer managed to calm her down, but the damage was done. A social worker testified next. She'd interviewed the children and evaluated the home environment. She reported that both children showed signs of trauma consistent with witnessing domestic violence, that they expressed fear of their mother, that Marcus had told her he was glad when Mommy didn't come home because the house was quiet. Lily had drawn a picture of their family that only included her, Marcus, and Daddy. The judge took a break to review everything. When she came back, her decision was swift. Full custody to the father, effective immediately. Supervised visitation only for the mother, pending completion of court-ordered counseling and anger management. A restraining order preventing her from going near the children's school or activities. The gavel came down, and it was done. My daughter screamed. Actually screamed, lunging toward her husband. The bailiff caught her before she could reach him. She was screaming about how we'd all conspired against her. How she'd make us pay. How she'd get her children back. They had to physically remove her from the courtroom. My son-in-law broke down crying. His lawyer patted his shoulder, told him he'd done the right thing. I sat there feeling numb. I'd just helped take my daughter's children away from her. Yes, she deserved it. Yes, those kids needed protection, but she was still my daughter, and I'd chosen against her. I went home alone that night. My ex-husband had left 17 messages, each one more vitriolic than the last, calling me a monster, saying I'd destroyed our family, demanding I fix this. I blocked his number. If he couldn't see that his daughter needed help instead of enabling, we had nothing to say to each other. The affair partner ended up testifying at her sentencing hearing. He stood there and told the judge how he'd been manipulated into believing he was protecting a victim when he was actually helping an abuser isolate her targets. His testimony was damning. After everything was over, he sent me a brief message saying he was moving to another state for a fresh start. I wished him well. He'd been a victim too, in his own way. That night I started going to therapy. First appointment was the next week. I needed help processing all of this. Needed someone to tell me whether I'd made the right choices. Whether a good mother would have done what I did. Whether I'd lost my daughter forever by protecting her children from her. The court-ordered psychological evaluation took 3 weeks. My daughter underwent extensive testing, interviews with multiple professionals, the whole process. I wasn't allowed to know the results directly, but my son-in-law's lawyer kept us informed. When the report came back, it explained so much and yet made everything more complicated. Borderline personality disorder with narcissistic traits. The psychologist's report detailed patterns of unstable relationships, fear of abandonment, inappropriate anger, and a distorted self-image. It explained the manipulation, the lying, the ability to believe her own stories. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it gave context. My daughter was genuinely unwell. Part of me felt relief at having an explanation. The other part felt guilty for feeling relieved, like I was looking for an excuse to forgive the unforgivable. My therapist, a patient woman who'd been helping me unpack this mess, told me both feelings were valid. That mental illness explains behavior but doesn't excuse abuse. That I could grieve for my daughter's illness while still protecting her victims. My daughter took a plea deal to avoid a full trial, pleaded guilty to domestic violence charges in exchange for 18 months in a correctional facility, followed by mandatory anger management, psychiatric treatment, and extended probation. Her lawyer called it a mercy. The prosecutor called it appropriate given her mental health diagnosis and the severity of documented abuse. I started seeing the kids regularly. Every Tuesday and Thursday after school, I'd pick them up and take them to my house. We'd do homework, have dinner, play games. Normal grandparent things I should have been doing all along. Marcus slowly opened up to me, told me about how scared he'd been, how he'd tried to protect his little sister. That kid had been carrying adult burdens for years. Lily was doing better faster, probably because she was younger. She still had nightmares sometimes, would wake up crying about yelling. Her dad got her into play therapy with someone who specialized in childhood trauma. It seemed to be helping. She drew pictures constantly, and gradually the dark scribbles turned into actual images of flowers and sunshine and her family. My son-in-law started going to a support group for male domestic violence survivors. He'd come pick up the kids from my house and sometimes stay for coffee, and we'd talk. Really talk. He told me about the shame he'd felt, how he'd been raised to believe men couldn't be victims, how the one time he'd tried to report the abuse, the responding officers had looked at him like he was pathetic, how he'd stayed for years because he was terrified of losing his kids. I apologized to him more times than I can count, for believing the lies, for planning to help her take the kids, for being another person who didn't believe him. He was gracious about it, said I'd more than made up for it by standing with him now. But I'm not sure I'll ever forgive myself for those 2 years. My relationship with my ex-husband completely disintegrated. He couldn't accept that our daughter was the abuser, kept insisting she was sick and needed our support, not punishment. I tried to explain that supporting her meant helping her face consequences and get treatment, not enabling her behavior. He called me brainwashed. We haven't spoken in months. My sister and her husband moved to a house near mine around this time. She'd been watching everything unfold from a distance, offering support where she could. Having them close helped. The kids loved having more family around, people who weren't associated with all the trauma. Her husband took Marcus to ball games, gave him male role models who were gentle and kind. My sister did art projects with Lily, let her be a normal kid having fun. The supervised visits between my daughter and the kids started after she completed initial counseling. A social worker documented everything: the inappropriate questions, the manipulation attempts, the way she made visits about her feelings instead of the children. Her therapist noted the same patterns in their sessions: refusal to take responsibility, blaming everyone else, playing the victim. Real change seemed impossible. Then came the night she showed up at my house drunk, violating her restraining order and probation. My neighbors called the police. She was arrested again, sentenced to serve the full 18 months. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe we both were. Prison letters started arriving weeks later, swinging between apologies and accusations. I stopped opening them after the first few. She called too, collect calls at random hours. The first call sounded genuine until she asked if I'd help appeal the custody decision. When I refused, her voice went cold. I didn't accept calls after that. She wrote to the kids too, most letters inappropriate and manipulative. My son-in-law filtered them carefully. Marcus rarely wanted to read even the appropriate ones. Said they made him feel bad inside. Life was settling into a new normal for everyone else. The kids thrived. Marcus joined the soccer team and suddenly had friends, kids who could come over without my daughter interrogating their parents or causing scenes. Lily started kindergarten and her teacher said she was bright and social. The nightmares became less frequent. The flinching when people raised their voices slowly disappeared. My son-in-law started dating someone from his support group, a kind woman who'd survived her own abusive marriage and understood trauma. I met her when she came to pick up the kids for a trip to the zoo. She was gentle with them, didn't push for affection, let them set the pace. The kids liked her. I approved. My daughter from prison sent me a letter calling me a traitor for accepting the replacement so easily. I threw it away without reading past the first page. My sister and her husband became integral to our little family unit. Sunday dinners at my house became tradition. Me, my son-in-law, the kids, my sister, and her husband. Sometimes his girlfriend joined us. We'd cook together, eat together, clean up together. The kids would play after dinner while the adults talked. It felt like family. Real family. Not the dysfunctional, traumatic version we'd all been surviving, but actual support and love. My ex-husband tried to reconcile once. Called me from our daughter's lawyer's office, said we needed to present a united front to help her case. I asked if he'd watched any of the videos. He said he didn't need to, that she was our daughter and we owed her loyalty. I told him I'd seen her hit her husband while holding a baby. He said there must have been a reason. I hung up and blocked that number too. The kids started calling me grandma without any awkwardness, would run to me at school pickup, show me their artwork, tell me about their days. Marcus asked me to come to his soccer games. Lily wanted me to attend her school performance. Normal grandparent things that felt miraculous given where we'd been. 6 months into her sentence, her therapist requested a family session. My daughter looked thin and tired. She apologized, then immediately started explaining why she'd acted that way. The therapist kept redirecting her, reminding her that explanations weren't excuses. My daughter was performing rehabilitation, not living it. When asked what it would take for me to believe she'd changed, I told her completing programs wasn't enough. I needed to see her take full responsibility, prioritize her children's needs over her wants, prove through consistent action she was safe. She didn't understand. Thought change was a checklist, not a transformation. As I left, she asked to see pictures of the kids. I'd brought some. She held them crying, then asked when they could visit. I saw the calculation in her eyes. The moment was gone. 10 months after everything fell apart, I went to Marcus's first soccer game of the season. Sat in the stands with my son-in-law, his girlfriend, my sister, and her husband. Lily sat on my lap eating snacks and cheering every time her brother touched the ball. It was aggressively normal in the best way possible. Marcus scored a goal. A real, actual goal. And the pure joy on his face when his team mobbed him made me cry. His dad was jumping up and down, his girlfriend was cheering, and Lily was screaming, "That's my brother," at everyone around us. After the game, Marcus ran straight to his dad, got swept up in a hug, then came to show me his medal. Asked if I'd seen the goal. I told him I'd seen it, that I was so proud. That he'd played amazingly. He beamed. We went out for food after, all of us crammed into a booth at a diner. The kids argued over who got to sit next to who, normal sibling stuff. Marcus told elaborate stories about the game, making himself sound more heroic with each retelling. Lily stole fries off everyone's plates. The adults talked and laughed. It felt like the kind of family memory that kids remember forever. My son-in-law's girlfriend, her name is Rebecca, asked the kids if they wanted to help her bake something the next weekend. They enthusiastically agreed. She was careful never to try replacing their mother. Never pushed for mom-like affection, just existed as a caring adult in their lives. The kids responded well to that approach. They'd started drawing pictures that included her, which felt significant. School became a safe place. Marcus made honor roll and joined the chess club. Lily's teacher said she showed leadership and kindness. The transformation from the anxious, withdrawn children they'd been was remarkable. Meanwhile, my daughter's therapist sent monthly updates. Always the same. Superficial compliance, no genuine insight. She'd say the right words, but in the next breath blame her husband or justify her violence. Her therapist told me some people can perform contrition without feeling it. They say the words without believing them. She requested another session, this time wanting the kids present. Marcus, old enough to decide, thought for a long time and said no. The relief on his face when we told him that was okay broke my heart. My daughter sent angry letters accusing us of alienating her children. Her therapist explained their reluctance was a consequence of her actions. She didn't understand the distinction. My ex-husband called from a new number I hadn't blocked yet, said our daughter had written him about being denied access to her kids, that we needed to stop this cruel punishment. I asked him if he'd finally watched the videos. He said he didn't need to see videos to know his daughter was a good person who'd made mistakes. I asked him if repeatedly beating someone in front of children qualified as a mistake. He said I'd become cold and cruel. I said I'd become protective of innocent kids. He hung up. The house I'd bought, the one that was meant to be my daughter's escape route, sat there with my son-in-law's name on the deed. He asked me several times if I wanted him to sign it over to me, pay me back somehow. I told him to keep it, consider it his and the kids for as long as they needed it. He cried and hugged me. Said I'd given them more than a house. I'd given them safety. My sister suggested we do family therapy, just the extended family members who were actively involved in the kids' lives. We found a therapist who specialized in complex family trauma. It helped. We all had different guilt, different pain, different ways we were processing everything. Having a neutral space to discuss it, to support each other, made the load lighter. Lily asked me one day if her mommy was going to come back and yell again. I told her honestly that her mommy was sick and learning to be better, but that her daddy and I would keep her safe no matter what. She thought about that, then asked if I could be her grandma forever. I promised I would be. My daughter's release date was approaching. 18 months had seemed like forever at first, but suddenly it was only weeks away. We all felt the tension building. The therapist warned us that real change was unlikely, that we needed to prepare for continued manipulation and boundary violations. We started discussing safety plans, legal options, how to protect the kids. Marcus asked me one night if his mom was going to take him away when she got out. The fear in his voice was visceral. I assured him that the court had given his dad custody, that no one was taking him anywhere he didn't want to go. But I could see he didn't fully believe me. The trauma of those early years had taught him that adults couldn't always protect him. It was going to take a long time to rebuild that trust. The new family we'd built was strong but fragile. We all knew my daughter's release would test it. We just had to hope it would hold. My daughter was released to a halfway house with strict parole conditions. She lasted 2 weeks before showing up at Marcus's school, violating her restraining order. Police arrested her immediately. The judge extended her supervised release by 6 months and warned one more violation meant prison. Marcus had nightmares after seeing her. All his progress, his sense of safety, damaged because she couldn't follow basic rules. The first supervised visit started well for 10 minutes. Then she cried about how hard prison was, making it about her suffering. When redirected, she started interrogating Marcus about his dad's girlfriend. Marcus shut down. Lily cried. The social worker ended the visit after 30 minutes. Marcus pulled away when she tried to hug him goodbye. The social worker's report was damning: inability to maintain boundaries, centering herself, using children for information. My daughter blamed everyone else. Her therapist said she'd rarely seen someone so resistant to self-examination. My sister asked me over coffee if I thought my daughter would ever change. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to believe that somewhere inside her was the little girl I'd raised, the young woman who'd been excited about becoming a mother, the person I thought I knew. But I'd seen too much now. The pattern was too clear. So I told her the truth. I didn't think so. And saying it out loud felt like grief. My ex-husband called again, furious about the visit being cut short. Said I needed to advocate for my daughter, help her get more time with her kids. I asked him if he'd heard about her showing up at the school. He said she was just a mother who missed her children. I asked him if he thought Marcus pulling away from her bothered him at all. He said I'd poisoned the kids against her. We haven't spoken since. The kids drew pictures in therapy. Lily drew her family. Daddy, Marcus, me, my sister, and her husband, Rebecca. No mother anywhere in the image. Marcus drew a house with a big fence around it, and everyone he loved safe inside. His mother stood outside the fence, far away. Their therapist said the drawings were telling. 3 months later, my daughter petitioned to modify custody. Her lawyer submitted certificates of completion and compliance letters. On paper, it looked good. The kids' therapist submitted a counter-report detailing their ongoing trauma, Marcus's nightmares, Lily's anxiety. The social worker documented continued boundary violations. The judge denied the motion, extended restrictions for another year. Completing programs, he said, wasn't the same as demonstrating change. My daughter, called screaming, said I'd turned everyone against her, ruined her life. I told her I loved her but loved her children more, and their safety wasn't negotiable. She hung up. That was 4 months ago. It's been 8 months since that last phone call. 8 months since my daughter screamed at me and hung up. 8 months of silence from her, though I hear through my ex-husband's sister that she's still in the halfway house, still going through the motions of her programs. Still insisting everyone else is wrong. The kids are doing remarkably well. Marcus is 8 now, thriving in 3rd grade. He's in advanced reading and joined the chess club, has friends who come over for playdates where they build elaborate structures and play normal kid games. He still sees his therapist monthly, but mostly he's just a regular kid now. The nightmares are rare. The flinching has stopped. He laughs freely. Lily is in first grade and reading above her level. She's obsessed with dinosaurs currently, can name about 40 different species. Her teacher says she's empathetic and creative, helps other kids when they're struggling. She doesn't ask about her mother anymore. Occasionally she'll mention her in passing, usually in past tense, like a person who used to exist but doesn't anymore. I don't correct her. My son-in-law proposed to Rebecca last month. Asked the kids first if it would be okay. Marcus said yes immediately. Lily asked if Rebecca would be her mom now. Rebecca handled it perfectly. Said she'd never try to replace their mom, but she'd love to be a special person in their lives who cared about them very much. They're planning a small wedding in the spring. The kids will be in the ceremony. The house I bought, the one that started all of this, is lived in and loved. They've made it their own. Painted the walls, planted a garden, hung family photos everywhere. My son-in-law tried again to pay me back or at least pay rent. I reminded him it's in his name legally, that it was always meant to protect those kids. And it's doing exactly that. He tears up every time we have this conversation. I see the kids 3 times a week now. Tuesdays after school, Saturdays for whatever adventure we can think of, and Sunday dinners with the whole extended family. Marcus started asking me about my life, about what I was like as a kid. Normal, grandkid curiosity. Lily brings me every art project she makes. My refrigerator is covered in them. My sister's husband taught Marcus to ride a bike without training wheels. I have video of the moment he got it, the pure triumph on his face. My sister taught Lily to braid hair, and now Lily practices on everyone. These are the moments my daughter is missing, and it's entirely her own fault. I've stopped feeling guilty about that. My therapy has helped me understand that I can mourn the daughter I thought I had while accepting the person she actually is. I can love her and still refuse to enable her. I can want her to get better while protecting her victims from her. These things can all be true simultaneously. It's taken me months to internalize that, but I'm getting there. The supervised visitation continues sporadically. My daughter requests visits irregularly, cancels some, shows up to others, and repeats the same patterns. The social workers document it all. The kids go when they're willing, which is less and less often. Marcus asked recently if he has to keep trying. I told him no, that he's allowed to protect his own peace. The relief in his eyes was answer enough. My ex-husband and I are permanently estranged. He's chosen to enable our daughter, to believe her version of events despite overwhelming evidence. That's his choice. I've made mine. We pass information through his sister when necessary, but we don't speak. It's sad losing a relationship of over 30 years, but some bridges need to burn to protect what matters more. I asked Marcus last week what he wanted to be when he grows up. He said a teacher, because his teachers make him feel safe and smart, and he wants to do that for other kids. This child who witnessed so much violence, who was traumatized so young, wants to grow up to help others. That tells me he's going to be okay. Lily asked me if I'll always be her grandma. I promised her yes. Always, no matter what. She said good because she loves me. Then she asked if we could get ice cream. We did. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and we sat outside the shop watching people walk by, eating ice cream, talking about dinosaurs. Normal, peaceful, safe. My daughter has my number and address. She could reach out if she wanted to take real accountability. She hasn't. Maybe she never will. But these kids are real. They're here, and they need me. I didn't plan to testify against my own daughter or choose her victims over her. But given the same circumstances, I'd make the exact same choices. Because love isn't always soft. Sometimes it means protecting the vulnerable, even when the threat is someone you've loved their entire life. The house I bought ended up protecting exactly who needed it, just not who I expected. It's become a home for a little family that survived hell. Every Sunday when I pull up and see the kids playing in the yard, I know my money went exactly where it needed to go. People ask if I have regrets. I regret the 2 years of believing lies. I regret the pain my son-in-law endured. I regret the trauma Marcus and Lily carry. But I don't regret protecting them. Standing with victims over abusers. Even when the abuser is your child, that's not betrayal. That's integrity. My daughter might change someday. Might genuinely do the work, take real accountability, become someone safe for her children. If that happens, I'll be there to support rebuilding relationships carefully and slowly. But I'm not holding my breath. And I'm not sacrificing these kids' well-being on the hope of maybe. This is my family now. Imperfect, complicated, built from the ashes of what was destroyed. But it's real, and it's loving, and everyone in it is choosing to be here. That includes me, the grandmother who learned that sometimes saving family means protecting them from other family. Marcus scored another goal last week. The whole family cheered. Lily lost her first tooth and left it for the tooth fairy. Rebecca is teaching them to bake. My sister's husband is building them a treehouse. These are the moments that matter. This is the family worth protecting. And I'd do it all again.